One of those, the most important, I think sometimes is overlooked, is leadership. If you're owning a business, you're not doing it by yourself. Just because you own the business doesn't mean you do it on your own. You're going to have a team. You're going to have people that work for you. And in today's world, especially, it's hard to find workers. I mean, I think a lot of companies are struggling with finding talent. And you've got to create a culture. You have to have the desire to create a culture within your company that is going to have your team members wake up every day saying, I get to do this, not I have to do this. So you've got to have that, those leadership qualities of building a good culture, building a strong team, and focusing on talent retention and growing the team that you have. That's very important. And it's a hard thing. You can teach it, but you have to have that drive to do that, to help people and grow people and create that culture.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook, the podcast where we welcome business leaders, CEOs, and industry experts to discuss the rise to the top, building wealth, and real estate insights. Here's your host, Jeremy Spann.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook. For more information on this show, you can go to our website, myexperiencedrealtor.com. That's experience with an ED. myexperiencedrealtor.com. You click on the podcast button. You can go down to this episode today or any other episode. You can download from all the different platforms, learn more about our guests. And as always, if you're looking to buy and sell real estate anywhere on the planet, even if it's not here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, go to the homepage, click Find a Trusted Professional, and we will make sure that you get someone that's not an idiot that can help you navigate buying and selling real estate to make sure your financial interests are looked after. But today we are not here to talk about real estate. We are here to talk about our fabulous guest. So when you go to that podcast button, scroll down and hit Rachel Southard. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hello, Jeremy. Thank you for having me.
Well, I mean, come on. I've had your husband in here during this series, and I don't know, he is a pretty good looking guy. I don't know who's better looking.
It's hard to follow up after.
It's kind of hard to tell who's better looking. You or him, you know? And as we start these things, we start off with a funny, not really funny joke, but John's family has a certain thing they're passionate about, so I thought this joke might be fitting. Okay. I did a similar one with him.
All right.
What goes around a baseball field but never moves?
I've got no idea, Jeremy.
The fence. See, at least you laughed, right? John was like, your joke was...
It's hard to make him laugh.
Yeah, I know, right? His happy face, sad face, just won the lottery face.
Yeah.
It's all the same face.
Yeah.
Actually, when he makes a face, we all start to pay attention like that was intentional,
right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of dad jokes, being a parent and everything else, somebody has a birthday.
Yeah, we have an almost 8-year-old in the house. She has reminded us every day, but yeah, she's turned 8 tomorrow.
8. I can't believe.
So we'll have an 8 and 9-year-old for about 6 weeks, and then the 9-year-old turns 10.
Wow. I can't believe how fast time has gone by.
I know. Well, we met you when the 8-year-old was not even 1.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Isn't it?
Time goes by.
Yeah.
Really fast.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's right. Summer of 14.
Yep.
Man, it is. Yeah. Well, or you can be like in my shoes is you can wait till they're almost 21 years old and just call them Wikipedia because she knows everything.
Oh,
right?
They already know everything.
Oh yeah. No, actually, I make a lot of jokes. I couldn't be more proud of Maggie. I mean, she's doing really, really good. We've had some learning opportunities going off to college. As most people do, right?
She's doing it right. She should have some learning opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, everybody was like, hey, what's Maggie majoring in? I was like, majoring in having a good time. And then that later was not the joke.
Yeah.
It was like, that's the reality.
It was funny at first, but now it's not.
No. If I'm going to pay for this, you actually got to show up to class, right? But she's good. She's finding her footing. She's a very independent woman, and she's doing great. So you and John, and I was laughing. I really caught him off guard. I was like, yeah, let's talk about how you met your wife. Because he's this very astute PhD history professor.
Yep.
Glasses down at the end of the nose. And then it was like, yeah, long hair playing in a band.
I was like, yeah, give him a guitar and put him on a stage. And you're like, who is that? That's the John. That's the the John I met. Like,
Yeah.
it was a blind date.
Total false advertising.
Yeah, it
right?
was. It was a blind date. And his sister actually introduced us. And I used to teach spin classes, and she taught my spin classes. And she would always come up to me like, you need to meet my brother. You need to meet. I'm like, who are you? I don't know you. I don't want to meet your brother. And then he's in grad school at TCU. He's working on his master's in history at the time. He was in a band. And in my mind, I was thinking, okay, he's like in the marching band at TCU. He's history. Like, this isn't really my type.
He's got nerd written all
I
over
know. I
him,
kind
right?
of avoided her like for a long time until I finally went with her. Like, his band's getting together. You should, come see the band. I was like, fine. So I went, and I was like, oh, that's your brother. Hello.
And then he's
And
in
here we
there
are.
performing, and then you realize he's like the world's largest introvert.
He
Right?
is. He is until he gets on a stage, and then he gets off the stage.
Dr.
and
Jekyll, Mr.
Yeah,
Hyde comes
yeah,
out, right? And you're
yeah.
like, who is that guy?
Exactly. So, yeah, here we are. What is it? 12 years. We've been married 12 years this year. So
12 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
12 years with
Yeah.
an almost 10-year-old, and I mean, literally minutes from
Yeah, minutes from an
8-year-old.
8-year-old. Yeah.
And so she's been reminding you all
She's
week
all
long.
the personality. Like, she is she does her hair and her makeup, and she's 7, almost 8 years old, and like just got this personality. They're both in music. She plays ukulele and sings and makes up these lyrics to songs. John will play his guitar, and Olive will just start singing, like just makes up the words. And you're just like, I was crying the other day. She was singing a song, and she's got all this like, I'm like, where do you get like this painful like lyrics from? You're 7, but they're very like raw. And I'm like, damn, girl. And it's just like, it's really cool.
So how different are Charlie and Olive?
Oh my gosh. So Charlie, who's our Charlie May, and it's Charlee. She is our almost 10-year-old, and she reminds me more of me as a child. She's very tomboy, plays sports, no nonsense, know-it-all, smarty pants, knows like, did you know, blah, 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 like Wikipedia. She reminds me a lot of me. I don't know. Olive reminds me a lot of me too, though. Olive is completely opposite. Girly girl, lipstick on, like she's already engaged. She has a fiance. She's 7, like boy crazy. Yeah, I mean, we have it's going to be an interesting
better put
ride.
locks on the windows
It's
there.
going to be interesting.
Or do what I did. Just, before they're old enough to crawl out the window, start growing holly bushes outside the windows.
Right.
So
Well,
that
they're
way it's too
upstairs, and it's a pretty far.
That doesn't
like,
matter.
I
That
know.
doesn't matter.
I've thought about
They can
this.
rappel.
I've actually thought about getting those like fire safety ladders. Like if there was ever a fire, like to be able to get down. I'm like, nope.
Yeah. They ain't going out
They're
because
not
of the
going
fire.
out for a fire.
right?
If
Yeah.
they're like their mother.
You're gonna hear this in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Is this your child?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I'm not worried about personality wise. Charlie is John. Olive is me. Like we're the real outgoing. Like we like to take risks and be a little crazy. Charlie's a little more like her father. They're a little more structured.
Rigid.
Yeah.
Rigid.
Yeah.
Rigid.
Yeah. Like things have to be in order. Like sometimes I'll go
Yeah.
around and John, he always has his shoes like just right, and I'll just kick him out. Just.
Oh yeah.
And he just like
To be
freaks
completely
out.
annoying.
Just to,
right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
Well,
okay.
you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a part of being a parent in partnership, and partners in life, and everything else is. Hey, we got to harass each other, right?
Yeah, you do. You gotta have fun.
So when and it was a lot of fun recording his episode. And we spent actually a lot of time talking about you.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait to go listen to that.
Listen to that one, right? All good stuff. Because we were, John and I share a lot of things in common, and one of them is we completely outpunted our coverage when it comes to marrying, right? And that we chose spouses who absolutely have hung with us through thick, thin, sickness and health, and till death do us part, which I've been concerned that Laura might actually cause death on me sooner or later. And so I want to go back and let's start your journey. But where I want the journey to go to is talk about, you wear multiple hats, right? You've been an incredible spouse support element for your husband. You've been an incredible mother and an incredibly successful business woman. I mean, talk about hitting the trifecta and doing all three. That doesn't come without any road rash, right?
Right.
That was easy, right? Somebody handed you a manual. You're just like, oh, yeah, abracadabra. All this happens.
I don't know which
right?
one's been the hardest of the three. They're all.
They probably each have their moments.
They each have their moments.
Right.
Yeah.
So where are you from?
So I am originally from South Louisiana. So I'm a Cajun. I was born in a very small town, Franklin, Louisiana. Grew up in the bayou, honestly. Like, bayou is my backyard. My whole family still lives in South Louisiana. My mom, my sister, all my family's there. I moved to Texas when I was 13. Interesting upbringing. I'm not going to say rough because I think that kind of defines me today. But my mom and stepdad divorced. The only other place my mom knew anyone to kind of get out and start over was in Arlington, Texas. Her youngest sister lived there, my aunt. And she's the only one that ever really, I hate to say this word, it sounds so negative, but escaped that small town, small-minded, kind of what we grew up in, and was the first one to go to college, move away from home. And so she was kind of my mom's lifeline. So my mom, took a huge step, divorced, took me and my younger sister, and we moved to Arlington on a whim. 13 woke up one morning and my mom said, we're moving to Texas. So it was a little traumatizing. And moved to Texas, started 8th grade in Mansfield. So went to junior high school in Mansfield. And I've been here ever since until John drugged me a few places after we got married, a few little adventures there. But yeah, I feel like I'm a Louisiana, Cajun born Texas girl. It's hard for me to choose. When people ask me where I'm from, it's almost hard to say South Louisiana. I'm so split 50-50. It's really fun when the Cowboys play the Saints. And I'm not a big football fan, NFL fan. I like more college football than anything. But it's just so funny to see all my John's family, Texas family, and Louisiana family have lots of good bets going on there.
Banter.
Yes. Did John ever has John ever told you about any of those bets that he's lost?
No.
He bets every year with my brother-in-law. It's either if LSU has played TCU, or it's either Louisiana college football, or if it's Saints and Cowboys. They bet, and whoever loses, the loser has to wear whatever the other one chooses at Christmas. So there has been some very interesting outfits.
What is the one that sticks out the most so far?
So was it 2 years ago? I'll show you a picture. I'll let you put a picture in the show notes.
Absolutely. Oh, no, that's done and done. Yeah.
Sorry, honey. Let's see. They got a youth size Saints jersey. Cut out, I don't remember whose jersey it was, but I think there was a number 8, and they cut out the circles. John's chest hair is coming out. It's so tight. It's a crop top. And then short Daisy Duke jean shorts. My sister bedazzled some cowboy boots, jewels all over him. He had to wear this at, I don't know if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, but around all of the family, he had to wear this outfit the whole day. Hilarious.
Pull that up.
I don't know where it is. I'll have it by the end of the show.
By the end of the show, I want to see that thing, and we are totally going to blast it out. It's actually going to be a great marketing tool for him. It's hey, if worst comes to worst, you hire this guy to be your public speaker. If he totally bombs, all you have to do at that point is just say, hey, yeah, his speech might have sucked, but check this photo out.
Check this out. He's going to kill me. And then the other way, he's my poor brother-in-law, who's I'm 6'4", 6'5", a huge dude. John kind of did the same thing for him, and he had to wear this really tight Cowboys jersey, and John got him the dad white tennis shoes and I don't know what you call it, but it's the shorts that your high school baseball coach would have worn.
Oh yeah, the athletic shorts.
The athletic shorts, he had to wear that whole outfit and hand out Christmas presents one year. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot. The Louisiana, Texas, banter
rivalry
is fun. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So you move here, you're growing up out in Mansfield. Yeah. What happens after high school?
Yeah. So, senior year, my mom says, love you, kid, but I'm going back to Louisiana. And I was not going back to Louisiana. So when I was 18, maybe a little before 18, mom and my younger sister moved back. I stayed. So, when all of my friends were going off to college, I ended up staying and going to UTA. I actually did the TCC UTA thing. And I was already away, and it's when I look back at like maybe one of the regrets I have, I didn't really get that go away to college experience. I wish I would have had, but I was just at a time in my life where I had to work full time and put myself through school. There was no, support there financially. So I didn't have the luxury of going away to college. So, but I finished college and was with the first one after my mom's sister, in my family to get the 4-year degree, which was a really big deal for me. So,
what'd you major in?
So my undergrad is in kinesiology, and did a minor in biology, and did my teaching certificate with that. So pedagogy, kinesiology.
So you have something in common with your father-in-law.
I do. Yeah, my father-in-law. I almost went to TCU. After TCC, I had this choice. I got accepted to TCU. Kinesiology had gone, picked out my classes and everything, or UTA, and just looking at the financial aspect of it, paying for it myself, I did the UTA route. So I always think about that, like, what would have happened if Dr. Southard would have been my professor? It would have been pretty interesting. I don't know if I ever would have met John. Who knows?
Right. Who knows? It could have been something totally different.
Totally different. Yeah.
So you get your degree, and what happens then?
Let's see. So I got my degree when I was a senior. That's when I met John. So I was senior in undergrad. John was working on his master's at TCU. I graduated. My first job when I was 16 was working in the daycare at a fitness center. And that's kind of where my passion for fitness came. I didn't realize at the time how that was going to kind of be a trajectory of where I am today, because the gym that I worked for was a franchise, and it was a single owner franchise. It was a Lady of America. I don't know if they're not even around anymore. But I grew up in that system. A different owner ended up acquiring it, who's a multi-club owner who owned locations all over the Metroplex. So it opened up a lot of opportunity to me. All through college, I worked there. Taught class. That's how I learned to teach step aerobics and kickboxing, all these classes.
That's what made you a badass.
Gym. I mean, it's kept me in shape. That's for sure. I wish I could go back to that.
We all do,
right?
I'm getting ready to turn that half-century mark, and I still one of my old Marine Corps buddies was in town up in Colorado this last weekend, and he was harassing me. He was like, "What happened to you?" And I was like, "Shut up, I'm older than you."
Right? You just kind of start blaming it on your age, even though it's not an excuse. It really isn't, but it's easy.
I'm
it's
still
easy
going to totally lean into these.
I am too. I do too. Believe me. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the mochas and wine, like coffee to wine. I mean, it has nothing to do with it at all.
Yeah. So you meet John.
Yes.
You're doing this fitness thing.
I'm doing fitness. I graduate. I'm managing a few fitness centers. That was kind of what I did right out of college. John actually, a couple years into our relationship, started his PhD program. And that was at Texas Tech in Lubbock. And I was like, bye, Felicia.
How excited were you to go to Lubbock?
Yeah, we were long distance for a little bit because I wasn't doing that thing. And this was an interesting twist in my, life events, I guess. I was 24 and decided, John and I had been together for 2 years. We had been long distance for a year. Okay, I'm going to move to Lubbock. So pack up. Move to Lubbock, get there. The day I got there, I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was a big transition.
What was that like?
It was, you're going from just living your life and the little things you don't think about on a daily basis to every minute constantly checking in with yourself. Like, how do I feel? Am I okay? Am I not okay? Am I low? Am I high? Is this right? Should I do this? Should I do that? And when I say minute by minute, through the night, I remember John and I, when I moved to Lubbock, we had different apartments, but same apartment complex. And I couldn't sleep alone for the first several weeks. I didn't want John to leave my apartment. I was so scared. I had to go to pricking my finger every few hours, taking insulin injections every day. And also on top of that, a new job, a new city, had no friends, had no family. Like John was it. And so that was very tough. And so I did not last. I was in Lubbock for about 4 months and I ended up coming back to Fort Worth. It was too much. So,
well, let's pause here for a second. And I mean, I don't know enough about diabetes. Actually, I don't know enough about anything medical. How does that happen where one day that switch occurs and you haven't had to prick your finger, check, and do all this and insulin and all that? It just one day, boom,
So it was a gradual thing over several weeks. So when your blood sugars are running high, there's a lot of symptoms like losing weight. So I lost like 10 pounds and I'd went on vacation and it lost like 10 pounds in a week.
Wow.
Which, I'm like, hey,
Roger that.
You're not thinking of like why this is not okay. But at the time I was also very active. I was teaching a lot of classes. So I was really, really thirsty, but I thought, I'm thirsty because I'm working out a lot. I'm just dehydrated. So I was drinking a ton. Well, then I'm going to the bathroom a ton, but I'm thinking, it's because I'm drinking a lot and I'm drinking because I'm working out a lot. Like I had just kind of an excuse for everything. Some random throwing up in there. And again, I had a couple beers. Maybe I didn't eat enough. Like just kind of an excuse for everything. And so I finally just went to, it was just like my annual checkup and my doctor's like, so what else is going on? I don't even remember what I told her. And she was like, it's diabetes running in your family. And it did. My grandfather was a type 1. He was actually diagnosed when he was 11. He's not living today. I never did meet him, but, he was, type 1. And then I have a younger cousin. She's 10 years younger than me. She was diagnosed when she was 11. So there's 2 people in my family that had type 1 diabetes. So we did some testing and those results came back the day I got to Lubbock. So it was shocking.
How scary was that?
It was very scary because even though I had it in my family, I was very uneducated about it. So I remember just 3 years prior to being diagnosed, my cousin Renee, who was 11 at the time when she was diagnosed, I was 21. I remember crying. I remember exactly where I was sitting and what I was doing when I found out she was diagnosed because I remember thinking she's going to die. Like this is a death sentence. I didn't know. I just, that's what I thought. So when I was diagnosed, it was very scary until I got educated and realized, like you can control this. It's still very serious, but you can live a very long, healthy life if you take care of yourself and do the right things. I wear an insulin pump. I wear a Dexcom, which is a continuous glucose monitor. I can look at my phone and see what my blood sugar is and, have an insulin pump, just press some buttons to take insulin. So I'm constantly monitoring it, but it's very manageable.
How much does it scare you that Charlie or Olive could potentially carry that gene as well?
So there has been some very unfortunate stories where a parent thinks their child has the flu and even the doctor says, it's just the flu. And it turns out to be type 1 diabetes and children die from undiagnosed diabetes. So anytime my kids have flu symptoms, I prick their finger. They hate it, but they get it. A simple prick of the finger and a little drop of blood can save a life. So it's always in the back of my mind. Anytime I'm always, why'd you just didn't you just go to the bathroom? Why are you going to the bathroom again? Let me prick your finger.
Yeah.
It's
a little bit of paranoia being a parent, right? Yeah.
So I'm definitely on top of it and keep an eye on it. However, from what I remember, new research this could be old research, but it's more dominant in the male gene with type 1. So like if John was the one with type 1, it's a little more common. But there's still a lot of people that get diagnosed with type 1 as adults. I was 24. There's a lot of people that get diagnosed as adults and it doesn't run in their family anywhere. So it's not just about having it in the family. In fact, if I recall, type 2 is even more hereditary than type 1.
What's the difference between type 1 and type 2?
In the most simplistic terms, type 2, your pancreas still makes insulin. Your body's just resistant to it. which is where you can usually take a pill, get more active, change the lifestyle to get your body, absorbing the insulin better. Type 1, your pancreas just pretty much stops making insulin.
And is there, and again, I'm very ignorant to this. I'm very uneducated. I don't know enough about the human anatomy. I mean, hey, I was a liberal arts major and then I went and got an MBA, so I didn't have to take any health classes. Is the pancreas something that you can have surgically replaced?
Yeah, you can. And some people do when they are at that point, if they get to that point where they need to. There's definitely pancreas transplants for people that are like in failure, things like that. So it's not something I would be qualified for, but it definitely can happen.
So do you think there's any correlation with you were in the fitness industry, right? Mm-hmm. And then now this happens, mm-hmm. right? That both worlds collide and you go, okay, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to stay connected to the fitness industry because my health is very, very important. Yeah. I mean, health is important in general, but yours is like, this is a
life
constant,
or death.
Right.
Yeah.
It literally. Yeah.
It did. I mean, having a fitness and nutrition background saved me. I mean, I knew already about carbohydrates and the role that fats and carbs and protein plays in the body and absorption. Like I knew a lot of that already. And that's something for someone who gets diagnosed with type 1 who doesn't have that background. Talk about, I can't imagine getting my 4-year degree popped in quick. I learned, all the things I learned was like, really important to have at that time. But part of diabetes is I have to take 1 unit of insulin for every 8 carbohydrates that I eat. So I have to be able to look at food and know that's X number of carbs, do the math, that's how much insulin I need to take. However, if those carbs are paired with really high fat or really high protein, it could slow the absorption. So I may need to take a little now and a little later. I mean, that's what's going through my brain all day long. What did I eat? Did I eat enough? Did I take enough insulin? How much? Math minus this times my correction fat. It's a constant balancing, because if you're too high, you need more insulin. If you're too low, you need sugar. And you don't get to take a break from it. I mean, you don't even get to go to sleep and not think about it, because who knows what your blood sugar does in your sleep, and it's waking you up, and it's a constant
no days off. Huh?
Yeah, no days off, and no days off for John. I mean, John is he gets alerts on my blood sugar. So if I'm going really high or really low, and I'm not, I do a lot of traveling for work, and there's times where he's calling people to go find me in my hotel room because Rachel's blood sugar is low. She's not answering her phone. I mean, I'm
and you're
fine.
Like, I'm in a conference right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I just couldn't, I'm eating sugar. My mom gets the alerts too. So there's so many times she's texting, are you eating? But it gives me comfort in knowing that if something were to happen, they're getting those alerts. So they're constantly thinking about it too. My poor sweet Olive, she has the biggest heart. And there may be a little ulterior motive in this, but she'll like go get some cookies, or she'll be eating something, and she's like, "Here, mommy, for your diabetes." Like, it's so sweet. They're thinking about it too. So
you come back to Arlington.
Yep.
What happens from there?
Let's see. This was I was back here for about a year, and then John proposed to me. So I kind of had no choice but to move back to Lubbock.
He was going to be your sugar daddy?
He was going to be my dad. With his PhD in history.
Oh, we talked about that. Like shit in the bed there. And then another unnamed company we both went to. It was like, dude, you were 2 for 2 there.
Yeah, 2 for 2. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, I know. We were together for a year. We were long distance for a year. I moved out there for a few months. So then we were long distance for another year. And then we got married, and I had no choice but to move back. But by the time I moved back to Lubbock, the second time we were married, my diabetes, I had been with it now for a couple of years. I was more comfortable. It was, just I was at a better place in my life to take that leap again. I also kind of had no choice. Like I guess I did have a choice, but I didn't want to live in a different city from my brand new husband. So yeah. So we moved out to Lubbock. I moved out to Lubbock and met John out there for his last year of grad school. Still in the fitness industry at the time. And this was a big jump because we was still in the fitness industry, had worked, was managing some health clubs out there. And then John graduated, and I was really nervous because we are sitting at his graduation party with all of his family in town. I was expecting. I was pregnant with Charlie, so our first babe's on the way. And he still doesn't have a job offer. And I'm like, what the hell are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? We're in Lubbock. I'm having this baby. You don't have a job. And I remember we went to breakfast the morning of his graduation. And I remember us sitting at breakfast and he got the email with the job offer for Georgia State. And that's when we moved out to Atlanta. So that was kind of the start of our next adventure.
So you go out to Atlanta. Do you have Charlie before or after you get to Atlanta?
So I was 26 or 7 weeks pregnant with Charlie when we moved to Atlanta. It was my first career move outside of like working in the gym, like in the brick and mortar. I got a job working for a fitness consulting company and software company that basically consulted with franchise gyms and had software for them to like manage their business. So if you're a member of a gym, there's a software working behind there that manages like your payment and if you do training sessions, scheduling, all of that. So I was working for a training software consulting company. And it was remote. It was work from home, which was great. It was this was 2009. Moved to Atlanta, working from home, still in fitness, but more on the software side. And I'm a big tech geek. I love technology. So it was kind of blending two worlds together for me. That was really exciting. 26 weeks pregnant, get to Atlanta. I don't know if it was the move or what, but we get there. We weren't even like unpacked. We'd been there a few days and found a doctor. I go in. They're like, you're having some contractions. I was like, I didn't feel anything. I felt fine. So I ended up having to go on bed rest at home, thankfully, just bed rest. So like John had to like unpack and like move into our house like completely by himself because I just sat there in a recliner.
Which actually he probably enjoyed because he got to put everything in place where he wanted it anyway.
Not necessarily where he wanted it. It was one of those like, I felt really bad, but then again, I really didn't. Mm-hmm. But that was, again, like new city. We're in Atlanta. We know no one. Really exciting time for John. Like he gets to go be a professor. Like he had in all this time and energy into getting his PhD, got his dissertation, got his, it was just really exciting that he got this really cool, we were on a 3-year contract at Georgia State. So we knew we'd be there for at least 3 years. Meanwhile, Charlie, I ended up going into labor with her at 29, 30 weeks. They were able to stop it, but in the hospital. So I lived in the hospital for a month.
Wow.
She ended up being born around 34 weeks, but again, just moved to a new place. And now I'm living in the hospital.
And how many weeks is the normal?
40. So
6 weeks early.
Yeah. I mean, she was born 6 weeks early. I went into labor 10 weeks early. They were able to keep her in. It was I kept a journal actually of the chaos because it was like every other day I would go into labor, take me down to labor and delivery. Nope, she's not. Stop it. Go back up. I mean, it was.
And you got another human in you, which I'm sure is probably affecting your insulin levels.
Oh gosh, diabetes and pregnancy. That's a whole nother craziness. So that was a very, John and I look back and it was a very traumatic birth. Charlie almost died at birth. I was in active labor for over 4 hours. They had to use, I was crying for a C-section, like, please cut me open. And John was like, we decided not to. And we went a different direction. She ended up, I don't remember if they used like forceps or vacuum. I'm not probably getting a little too girly. I want to cut this part out. But she ended up coming out and they rushed her off to the NICU. And I remember sitting there and waiting for John to come back because he went with her. And I will never forget John's face when he walked back in. And they had to do an emergency blood transfusion. Like he said, like just doctors swarmed. And what had happened was during birth, she got it's called a subgaleal bleed. And there's a very high death rate with infants that get this. And it's basically the space between her skin and her scalp just rubbed and rubbed and rubbed. She was stuck basically. And it caused internal bleeding between that space. And so like all the blood in her body was pulling to her head. And when we went to see her in the NICU, it was the weirdest thing, Jeremy. It was like her head was mush because all the blood was like up. It was just crazy. But her being a preemie and having that subgaleal bleed, it was very traumatic, and they had to do a lot of tests. They weren't sure if there would be some permanent damage. And again, it's the one time I've ever seen John cry. Is when we got that call. We were in the waiting. Like, does she have? There were a few things on the table that, like, cerebral palsy, I think, was one of them, or just some different things with the brain that it could have impacted. And when we got the call that she was fine and she was healthy, it was just this like, I mean, I'll never forget that moment of just
relief.
It makes me tear up thinking about it. It was very scary. But God, did John and I just learn a lot going through that experience together, and everything's fine now. She's a little firecracker, so we're good.
So just like with John's episode and all these episodes, king of one-liners, right?
Yeah.
Spanisms. But one of them that I constantly use is everything that's a blessing is a curse, and everything that's a curse is a blessing. And the curse of going through something like that also creates the blessing of how much you truly learn to value life.
Yes.
I mean, here it is. You've been uprooted from Louisiana to a new place in Texas. You find a hippie PhD, serious stoic guy, goes to Lubbock. You uproot there. You get there, and life-changing health situation. You finally make it through that, and then you get to yet another new location, and you go through all
Another
this
traumatic event.
Man, it just sounds exhausting.
Yeah. You know what? But when I was in it, and I think John would say the same, it never felt exhausting. I mean, it felt like it's just the thing we're doing. Like, and I think you just do it. You just you roll with the punches. You deal with it. And you move on. And I don't know if that's just a mentality thing that I have, but I've never felt like a victim to my circumstances or like woe is me. It's just like, I mean, I look at
the one thing I can absolutely say about you, you are definitely not a woe is me person. You are an incredibly, I mean, just Rachel, the way you've always carried yourself, you are a powerful presence in everything that you do. I mean, that was one of the, I'll never forget, like, the first time I met you. Plus, you always smile. As a matter of fact, it's funny. Laura called it best. She was like, she's probably the one person that can smile, and people are like, wow, she's smiling. And she's thinking, you're an idiot.
You know what's funny that you say about that? I once had, I'll never forget, I'm going to call his name out, Dave Mortensen. I love him. He's one of the founders and president of Self-Esteem Brand. So we haven't gotten to that part of my story yet, but we were in a boardroom once, and this was me, young in my career. This was, I don't know, 8 years ago. I mean, it was after, we'll get there, but I remember after this meeting, we went into his office. He's like, you wear your emotions on your face, don't you? I was like, do I? It was like, I think I've learned to do that smile thing.
Just to try to mask as much as possible. Like, I'm smiling, I'm seeing you, I'm smiling, but you can't read my mind. I think you're an idiot.
What's going on in here.
So now, does that, all the emotions and fears and everything else that go into, now Charlie's here, now Olive is on the way. Yeah. Does all that have some carry through with like, okay, now we're getting ready to do this again?
It did. I mean, I was definitely scared, but we learned a lot. My doctor and I, through my pregnancy with Charlie, and were able to do some different medications and precautions early on in the pregnancy. So I had a much better pregnancy with Olive. She was an elective C-section because we didn't want to go through that situation again. So Olive, she made it a couple weeks longer. She was still preemie. I think Olive came around 35 or 36 weeks. So she lasted longer than Charlie, but I didn't have the bed rest. I didn't live in the hospital.
So what I'm hearing is you have two impatient children that are like, we are not going to wait on the world to say, hello, see us. They were like, we're coming early. We're coming.
And where do you think they get that from? Can't be mad at them. I'm like the most impatient person. Like, I understand. I'd want to be out of there too, girlfriend. Let me tell you.
So now you've got Charlie, you've got
two
Olive,
babies. Yeah.
And
So
John's coming up on year 3.
yeah. So I'm going to back up just a tad back to my career move at that point because I think it's really important here. The company that I went to work for, the consulting software company, our largest account at the time was Anytime Fitness. I hadn't been there, I don't know, maybe 6 months, and Anytime Fitness actually acquired us. So again, there's kind of some full circle there back to fitness franchising because if you go back to my high school and college, I worked for a franchisee in the field. And now I'm kind of my first time on the other side working for the franchisor. So I started at Anytime Fitness. That was in 2000. It was when Charlie was born, which would have been 2011. I started at Anytime Fitness. At the time, it was just Anytime Fitness. They had a few hundred locations between the U.S. and Canada. We may have had a couple in Australia at the time. I left Anytime Fitness last year, and when I left, we were over 4,000 locations worldwide. Gosh, over 33, 34 countries. So 10 years of experience on the franchisor side, growing a brand. During that time, they actually created a parent company, Self-Esteem Brands, and became a franchising company and acquired other franchises where when I left, we had a portfolio of, I think, 4 different brands under Self-Esteem Brands.
What is the rough value of all those brands put together?
Gosh, Self-Esteem Brands is $1 billion company. I mean, they're global. They're in multiple countries. We almost were in China. That was part of my motivation of going to grad school and why I picked the program I picked, because they had a really big presence in China. And that was an area we were kind of leaning into in 2019. A lot changed pretty quick right after that. So,
wow. So you're over at Anytime. You got 2 babies.
Yep.
You got a big baby.
Yep. Yep.
Who's coming up on time to pop. And as we talked about on his episode, doesn't happen.
That was a very stressful time. And looking back, John and I mean, I'm not saying, I'm knock on wood. We've had our obviously our challenges. Or I don't even know if challenges is the right word, but traumatic events that we've been through together in our relationship. But we've always had a very good, we trust each other, we respect each other. And it's never felt hard with each other. We've gone through hard things, but we both will come from a place of empathy. And I had to really dig deep to find that empathy during that time for John, as much as you want to. The easy thing to do would have been to be frustrated, get a job, do something with the, what are you doing? You know, but I had to think of it from where he was coming from. I mean, he had 10 years of school to do this thing that he was so passionate about and to try to get a job and not find anything. I'm sure I'm not going to go there because I know you guys probably talked about it in his podcast, but I had to dig deep to find that empathy and love for him to go through that. And we did, and it was fine. We came out on the other side, but it was tough being, like you said, we're in Atlanta. His contract's up. He has nothing lined up. We have a 2-year-old and a baby, and we're moving in with his parents.
Sure, you're exhilarated to know that.
They might watch this podcast. So. I was.
Yeah. And so you get back here to Fort Worth, living with John's parents. Of course, he goes and gets on, just like me and several others, to unnamed said company.
Yeah, he found something that looked to be like a very exciting and interesting opportunity that we were both like, this is going to be so good. You can use your history, military history, and business, put those two together, and kind of nonprofit, like a bigger purpose with that. And we were really excited about it. Yeah,
and then that falls apart because we were all attracted to it for the same reasons. Yeah. So then there's strike 2, right?
Yep.
And then, he finally finds his path, right?
Yeah.
And he's doing great.
He's doing great.
Right?
Yeah.
And then here it is. You're still with Anytime Fitness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're the brand manager, right?
I was the director of operations.
Director
for
of
the Anytime
operations.
Fitness. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I really grew up in operations and a lot on technology integrations. I mean, we were doing a lot of one thing about Anytime Fitness is they're like a fitness franchise kind of disguised. They're a technology company disguised as a fitness franchise. A lot of our own proprietary technology and a lot of that buy, build, partner integrations to give the best experience to our franchisees and our members. So that was, I learned a ton. And what happened in my career, this is, really how I got to where I am today is, started in fitness, got on the business side of fitness, and then got on to business. And it was really this transition I never saw coming. But I learned so much it was not but a couple years into my tenure at Anytime that I wasn't even using my fitness degree. I was running a business. I had fitness experts working under me that were running the fitness side of things, but I was running, the business. And I got really, really intrigued with the business, which is what motivated me to go back to school and get my MBA.
And so you go back to UTA.
Yep.
You get your MBA.
Yep.
You're still with Anytime Fitness.
I'm still with Anytime Fitness when I started my MBA program. We were right in the middle of COVID. I started my MBA in January of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So it was like an 18-month program, started in January, 6 weeks in, three months in, COVID, we go virtual. We were supposed to go to China. China trip gets canceled. It was, a completely different experience than what I had signed up for. But also to go through COVID and the challenges you're going through and running a billion-dollar business, to have that cohort and all of us going through that together, looking back on, was like, it wasn't really that bad to go through it during that time. I mean, I still, in contact with a lot of my cohort, amazing relationships formed. And for all of us to be going through what COVID was doing to all of our businesses where we were, it was the perfect place to be during that time.
Yeah, because let's face it, COVID decimated the fitness industry, right?
Yes.
Things are shut down. Never mind, we can pack people on a plane, but you can't go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's a lot of, we could probably make an entire episode out of the frustration levels of like, how is that okay?
But this isn't.
Is not okay,
don't get me started on
right?
that. Yeah.
And so you're going through this.
Yeah.
Something new comes in your world.
Something does come in my world. It was very unexpected. I shouldn't say unexpected, because one thing I'll say is the brand president of Anytime Fitness, who I reported to, she is an amazing businesswoman that I've always looked up to and was really a mentor for me. She was always coaching me in my career. And she was a big part of why I went back to grad school. She knew I wanted to be a brand president someday. And she was the one that's like, Rach, you got to go to grad school. You got to go work in consulting. You got to get some consulting experience. And, to me, that's an amazing leader, to risk losing someone that works for you, but to be a big part of their career journey. So I went to grad school, and then a really interesting opportunity came up for consulting. And so I left Anytime last year and went to work for Bottle Rocket, which is an experience consultancy. They're based in Dallas. Amazing experience with that company. If you haven't heard of them, look them up. They're the organization that built the Chick-fil-A app. So when you think about where physical and digital experiences collide, that's where Bottle Rocket comes in. So I had some amazing experiences there, working with different big multi-billion-dollar companies, helping them go through digital transformations and growing a brand and growth strategy. So all the fun things that come with consulting. I had planned on being there for a few years. Like, okay, I got my MBA. I'm doing this consulting thing. Like, this is where I'm going to hang out for a while. Until out of the blue, a recruiter reached out to me about another opportunity that I wasn't expecting for a few years. And it was for a brand president role. And I have to tell you, when he told me the name of the brand, I laughed. I was like, what is that? What do they do? I was like, no, Doug, I'm not interested. No, thank you. And he's like, just go through the process. Like, you'll see. And I did. I went through the months of interviewing and learning about this brand and meeting with the staff at the franchisor office, meeting with some franchisees, learning about the brand. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, we are sitting on a marketing gold mine. Like, what we could do with this brand is really exciting. And I just couldn't pass up the opportunity. So June of this year, I took the role as the brand president for Min & Kilts. So let the jaws drop to the floor.
Right.
Min & Kilts, it's a franchise. We do window cleaning, gutter cleaning, power washing, house washing, commercial and residential exterior cleaning. And we wear kilts. So you will see our guys and gals. Don't let the name fool you, because we have a lot of amazing women that wear their kilts and do the cleaning. It's really cool. You know, when I think about what Min & Kilts' kind of unique selling point is, we're bringing an experience to getting your windows washed. Like, who would have thought of that? Like, who do you think of when you think of a window cleaning company? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. Yeah, like, okay, got a squeegee, got some soap.
But I promise you, the first time you see a person wearing a kilt cleaning windows, you're never going to look at a kilt the same. You're going to see a guy cleaning windows. You're going to be like, where's this kilt? You know? Yeah. So we have a really fun opportunity here to bring a really amazing customer experience to the home services industry. Another really unique thing about Min & Kilts is we are part of a larger brand, Threshold Brands, that owns multiple brands, franchise brands in the home services space. So it's really neat to be part of that franchise community.
So, and if you're watching this episode on YouTube, you will see I am wearing the Min & Kilts t-shirt. And because I always love free stuff anyways.
And now you have to turn around and see what our
and on the back, if you're watching this, you see no peeking.
No peeking. That's peeking. Our little slogan.
So I see the interest and all that, but what was it about this that was like, okay, this is a marketing gold mine? Like, when you peel back the layers of the onion to really get to the root of it, per se, is what is it about this company?
I heard someone say this, so I didn't make this up. I'm stealing this from someone. Min & Kilts is part of another franchise called Made Pro. So Made Pro is a maid service franchise. We have those here in Dallas-Fort Worth. They're amazing. They've been around for over 20 years. Very top 2 franchise recently voted top 2, like a very, very reputable franchise company. And so Min & Kilts is kind of like the 20-year startup. They've got the backing of this other franchise brands that have been around for years and have created all these processes and systems. Min & Kilts actually started in Canada, over 15 years ago, 2009, I think. So not quite 15 years. And it was a guy that just owned his own window cleaning company. Scottish guy in Canada, and he was at a bar one night with his friends. They're putting back some beers and talking about his window cleaning business and what can I do to stand out and be different. And friends over beers, you should wear your kilt. He wore his kilt all the time. You should wear your kilt while you clean, and that's how it got started. So we have a big brand awareness and big presence in Canada. So there's already an established brand that exists that has the backing of another well-established brand in an industry that is untapped. I mean, we've got 23 locations today in the U.S. and Canada. There's so much opportunity to just dominate in this market, and it's just really exciting.
Wow. And so it's interesting how a journey takes you all the way to a company that you were like, I would have never thought in a million years. But so that gives us the root of what the company is. But what makes it really interesting for you being the brand president of this, right?
It is, there's a little bit of the legacy factor, like to come in and take a brand it's been through its own ups and downs. It's been around for a little while. And, in fact, it was previously owned by a different franchisor before our existing franchisor owned it. And, the people in this brand, the franchisees that we have today are amazing, passionate people. I've only been here for 2 months, and part of my 2 months has been having a lot of one-on-ones with each franchisee, and they all bring their unique stories, and they have their own journeys of how they became a Min and Kilts franchisee. That's what it is for me, is like helping those franchisees live their dreams and reach their goals, and being able to have a big part in unlocking what this brand can be for them and provide that growth. And like, a lot of people that go out to start a franchise are usually leaving corporate America, leaving a lot of that baggage behind. They want to do something for themselves. They have that entrepreneurial spirit. And so to really help those franchisees find that and give them the processes and the tools and, the unlock the capabilities for them to be able to live their dreams is, how do you not find passion in that and find excitement in that? To be a part of that legacy of unlocking that for so many people is just really exciting.
How much of a presence does Min and Kilts have in Texas?
We have one office in Texas, down in Houston area, Richmond, Texas.
Okay.
So if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you want to see Men in Kilts, call me.
So now you're, as a brand manager, is part of your role to help grow the presence and bring in more franchisees, right?
Yeah, I have a little hand in everything as the brand president. So part of that is expanding into new markets. So franchise growth, finding new markets, new franchisees to bring into the system to open up and help to spread that brand awareness, spread our footprint. Right now we're just US and Canada. And then I also am responsible for existing franchisee growth. So what can we do to expand in the existing markets that we're in to help our current franchisees, make more money, expand into the existing markets?
So having a lot of experience, in franchising is, what are some bullet points? So if there's an audience that's listening to this that says, hey, I'm interested, what are some bullet points that you would say, hey, if you're A, B, and C, or looking for D, E, and F, what are some of those that if an audience member or members are listening, they go, check. Hey, I need to go look into this. What are some of those? What are some of those bullet points?
You've definitely got to have that entrepreneurial spirit, but I will say that can be a good and a bad thing. So it's like the balance, right? Part of being in a franchise, and I mean, most people don't realize we're surrounded by franchises. I think McDonald's is a great example. So it's the most common one, right? So if you're going to open a McDonald's, you can't decide, I want to sell pizza. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to sell pizza. It's McDonald's. It's not what McDonald's does. So you definitely got to be someone who wants to run their own business and has the mentality of working for yourself and growing a business, but doesn't have the desire to start from scratch. Like, you want to get a jump start. Give me the ops manual. Tell me exactly what to do, what to sell, how to sell it. Like, give me the manual and I will run with it. And so it's kind of that, it's like such the perfect balance between working for the man and working for yourself and starting up something from scratch. It's like a nice jump start right in the middle.
So somebody's got an entrepreneur spirit. They don't want to do necessarily the foundation building of creating a company. They just want to take something and run. They want the playbook, right?
Want the playbook. You want the playbook, we have the playbook.
You want the playbook to be able to go run with it. Then at that point, somebody says, okay, what are some other characteristics and qualities that person needs to possess in order to want to go, let me jump into this?
One of those, the most important, I think sometimes is overlooked, is leadership. If you're owning a business, you're not doing it by yourself. Just because you own the business doesn't mean you do it on your own. You're going to have a team. You're going to have people that work for you. And in today's world, especially, it's hard to find workers. I mean, I think a lot of companies are struggling with finding talent. And you've got to create a culture. You have to have the desire to create a culture within your company that is going to have your team members wake up every day saying, I get to do this, not I have to do this. So you've got to have that, those leadership qualities of building a good culture, building a strong team, and focusing on talent retention and growing the team that you have. That's very important. And it's a hard thing. You can teach it, but you have to have that drive to do that, to help people and grow people and create that culture.
Especially in today's, market. I mean, I own several companies. One of those companies is a restaurant over in Arlington, and finding not even skilled labor, but what I will say is willing labor, right? It's a struggle right now. And not just in the restaurant industry, right? I mean, because, hey, let's face it, right? I mean, look, we're making pizzas.
Yeah.
Right? You take the dough, you put it in the pan, you flatten it out, you put on the sauce, you put on the cheese, you put on the toppings, you put it in the oven, and it comes out. We're not doing brain surgery.
Repeat.
Right?
Yeah.
We're not doing brain surgery here. And I mean, Jeremy, who has been my GM for the last several years, he was just this amazing human who is just... his perseverance through the pandemic and keeping that business open has done an amazing job. But literally every time we talk, he's like, you can't hire anybody. Yeah. And it's even getting to a point where it doesn't even matter how much money you throw at them. They're not coming, right? And then like even we're seeing that across, like you said, all industries. So like in the real estate industry, right? So supply chains have been incredibly disruptive, right?
Yes.
And not just in supply chains as far as building materials, right? Because everybody's like, oh, real estate bubble. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Is the reason things are trading so hot and fast is because there is no inventory with an extreme high demand.
Yep.
So the only thing to offset that is one of three things. Either reduce the demand, which means most likely the avenue to do that would be to raise interest rates. Mm-hmm. And Rachel, are politicians going to raise interest rates? No. Why wouldn't they? Not if they want to keep their job. Yeah. So their self-perseverance is, nope, we're going to keep going down and down and down. Right. So we're not going to affect demand that way. Yep. The other way would be is to affect the demand. Another part of that demand is if all of a sudden we had a lot of people move out of Texas, that's not happening because they're all coming to Texas, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, right? I mean, they are migrating in. I think Fort Worth's current population is growing at a rate of a human body every 15 minutes right now.
Wow.
Right? And there is no
There's
inventory.
Nowhere for them to go.
There's nowhere to live. There's no inventory, right? So there's not much it seems like we can do to reduce the demand, right? So high demand, very low inventory. So you have to look at it and go, okay, well, let's create more inventory. Well, again, the only way to create inventory is by people leaving that create inventory. Yeah. Nobody's leaving. They're all coming here. So you're like, okay, well, let's build more inventory. Well, you can't do that because the supply chains are all disruptive. And people go, well, how long can this last? And I said, well, in my opinion, we got another 2 years of supply chains really trying to get things straightened out. And they're like, oh, so in 2 years, everything will be better. And I was like, maybe not. Because even if we had all the supply chains on point today, we have a skilled labor shortage that people don't want to go do that job. So even if we had all the materials, if you got no one swinging hammers and twisting wrenches, it doesn't matter. So that means inventory is going to stay at that scarcity. So you've either got to increase inventory, reduce demand, or do both of those at the same time. None of that's being done. So that's why I tell people, it's like, hey, because of supply chains, because of lack of labor across all the industry, right, is we're going to see home values continuing to rise. Yeah. What I tell clients and other people that come and ask me for consulting services is I can show you data that gives me a professional opinion of this thing's got gas pedal for another 5 years. Yeah. My personal opinion is it's 10. I just don't have enough data to say where will the labor be in another couple of years? If I knew the answer to the labor in the next couple of years,
you tighten up your
estimate. And it's so, I don't like to talk politics or hot button stuff like that on here, but I tell people, I'm like, hey, you got half this country that's anti-immigration until it affects their wallets. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So as it turns out, you own a business, you can't get any workers. Well, sooner or later, you're like, hey, come one, come all, right? Because my business is going to die unless I get somebody in there to work, and nobody's coming to work.
Yep.
Right? So I'm sure those are concerns within the industry, right? In your industry,
yeah.
Right? So you can, so what are some of the, we don't have to make a whole lot of craziness out of it. What are some of the things that you do to reinsure the confidence of your franchisees of like, hey,
So
X,
we actually just recently hired we have business coaches. So when you buy into a franchise, become a franchisee, if any reputable franchisor is going to provide you with a franchise business coach that is your go-to person that coaches you on your finances, your P&L, just running your business, everything. We just hired a recruiting personnel, people, specific business coach. And she is creating the specific resources on recruiting, onboarding, retention. I mean, all of the whole entire life cycle of an employee. We do constant learning series, virtual webinars for our franchisees, playbooks that we've put out to give them the tools to combat this problem as much as they possibly can in the situation that we're in.
And, what's really interesting is everybody's saying that, all these different things with labor and whatnot, as I really see you and John not just being partners in marriage and parenting, but I mean, look, his shtick, right, is culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, man, you want to talk about you want to get the guy to smile that never smiles is talk about culture, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's crazy. I mean, the reason I've been very fortunate to be successful in all my businesses is that's the number one thing is culture, right? Train them so they can go get a better job somewhere else, but treat them in such a manner
that they don't
even think about it,
exactly.
Right? Because when you create that culture is – and that's also a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Like my blessing is my team on the Spann group, right? I have to buy vacations. I don't know how, I don't even know in the last 2 years how many plane tickets and resorts and everything else. I'm not talking about corporate retreats. I'm like, here's the plane ticket.
Get out of here.
Just go. Take a day off, right? Like take some time off because my fear is burnout.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And that's a reality, right? Or,
absolutely.
Which, as Laura would tell me, she was like, well, you're inhuman, so you don't even know what that means, but the rest of us do.
Yeah.
But the blessing of it is my people, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
They don't even want to think about it because they love the empowerment that they have, right?
Yeah.
Is they love, my very hands-off approach to things. They love Laura's leadership and how she does things with the company in that we're like, hey, listen, this is how we do it.
Yep.
It's yours, run with the ball, right? Here's the playbook. You got the football, put it in the end zone, right? Yeah. And that's great because they feel this sense of freedom.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what keeps them coming. I mean, actually, in all reality, and if my team's listening, please don't go do this. They could leave the team today, replicate what we're doing, and probably go make more money overnight. Mm-hmm. But that's not why they stay.
Yeah.
They stay because we've created an environment that we're very slow to hire.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like we take a lot of time to
slow
pick
to hire,
the
quick
right,
to fire.
Very, very important element. Because look, I had a number of occasions where, so I've brought James Peterson on 6 months ago, and it took me 2 years to get him. Well, one, I couldn't afford him 2.5 years ago. I could 6 months ago when I finally offered him the position. But even then, it took me 2 years to get there because every time I had someone get really close to the finish line, at the end of the day, they were going to be disruptive to the team. Mm-hmm. Now, these folks have forgotten more about selling than I even know. I'm a pretty good sales guy, right? Been number one at Sotheby's.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, been number one at Sotheby's for a couple of years, right? So I know how to sell. And I had people that knew how to sell better than me, but they weren't going to be a fit for the team. And I was like, no. As a matter of fact, that's how we empower the team is we're like, hey, here's what we're going to do. What's everybody's thoughts?
Yeah.
And it's not like other unnamed said company where it's like, hey, what are your thoughts? And you say it and they're like, pound sand. We really didn't care.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, okay, if we get one person that says no, then it's a no. Like even with our clients, when we bring on new clients, if one person says,
nope,
I got a bad feeling about this that quick.
Yeah.
Nope, sorry, we're not going to be a fit with each other. And, even in 2020, we turned down over $4 million worth of production.
Nice.
All right. To be a top producer in Fort Worth, you only got to do $3 million.
Yeah.
So we turned down more than what top producers do. And people were like, how can you do that? And I was like, well, I mean, we still did $40 million.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to you can't be everything to everyone.
No, you can't.
You have to find out what is your perfect target customer and you go after that. Because if you start veering off too much to trying to be everything to everyone, you get distracted on what your core competencies are.
Yeah.
So that's the right thing. If you start trying to go after everything, you start losing track of what you're really good at. And that's when competitors come and swoop in, and it's easy for them to replicate or take over,
It's like a friend of mine, Chris Klug. He was Sotheby's up in Aspen, got a bronze medal in the downhill many years ago in the Olympics. He says, my dad trained me that plan your path, ski your path. When you deviate, that's when you have problems. Doesn't mean you can't change the path, get a better path, make some adjustments, stick to the path. But when you deviate, that's when you run into issues, right? And it's easy. There's a lot of distractions out there. Yep. There's a lot of opportunities. And it's very hard in business to stay hyper-focused, right? And it is. I mean, I'm faced with it every day. I mean, I on average right now, I put 2 houses under contract. This is not for the Spann Group side. I mean, we're doing probably about, on average for this year, a little over $1 million in closings a week for the Spann Group side. And then for my investors and fund that I had started, we're taking down, we put on average 2 things under contract a week and close 2 things a week, right? For growing this investment portfolio. And when you're doing it and you're sticking at a pace, it's really hard to stay disciplined to go, but what if we just do this one, right? And you can't. You got to go, nope, the plan is this. This is what we stick to.
The hardest part about strategy is saying no. No. You've got to be able to say no.
Yeah, you got to. You got to say yes to the strategy and no to everything else. Right?
Yeah.
And then as it gets there, it comes together, and then you wake up and you're like, wow, how many properties do we have? Like, whoa, holy cow. And because what it is confusion creates fear, clarity creates trust.
Yep.
You confuse people when you deviate from the plan. You confuse people when you don't stay hyper-focused. You give them clarity when you do, and clarity creates trust, and it creates confidence, where now, as far as investors, I can say no to investors, because I'm like, no, I actually, at this point, never thought I'd be in a point in my life that I actually have more money to spend than there is assets to go buy.
That trust and credibility is so important, because people don't buy from people they don't like. Mm-mm. I mean, that trust and credibility is extremely important in building a customer base and growing your customer base. So, what do they say? Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely it. Right. And look, what good is strategy if it's just an idea and you have no execution?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's take it back.
Okay.
Go back to 20-year-old self. Right. And we know that 20-year-old selves, as I always say at this portion in the show, would probably not listen to anything, wouldn't be willing to listen. But if we knew that 20-year-old self was willing to listen to one thing, that one little nugget of advice, what would you go back and tell 20-year-old self? Like, if anything, do or don't do this.
I feel like this is going to be a very cliche answer, but I look at where I'm at today and the life I've lived. I'm, amazing husband and family. We've been through so many things, and we're like, if I would change one thing, it could change the trajectory of where I am today. I don't know that I would change anything. There are some, lots of things we didn't talk about today in my life that got me to where I am today. And if I would go back and change one little thing, it could change me sitting right here telling you this story. And I have no regrets. Maybe I've lived a boring life. I don't know.
It is anything but boring, regrets. Rachel. Anything but boring. So if I understand right, if you went back to 20-year-old self today, you just look at 20-year-old self and go,
just keep going, girl.
Got nothing. Just go do you.
I have this thing in me that has always been in me that may be good or bad. I wear John out with this, but it's never enough for me. There's always the next thing and the next thing. I'm just have a growth mindset. And I would maybe if I told myself anything is keep that, always have that, keep that moving on to the next thing. Even if you see some bumps, you just go right over them and you take it and you go. I mean, that's the way I've always lived my life. And I would make sure I wouldn't change that.
Sound advice from a true professional. So people want to learn more about Men in Kilts.
Yeah.
Where do they go? What do they do? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can email me at rsouthard@menandkilts.com. You can check out our website, menandkiltsfranchising.com, our consumer website, menandkilts.com.
Okay. And for the audience that's out there listening, if you didn't have a chance to catch that, you can always go to our website, myexperiencerealtor.com, experience with an ED. Click on podcast, scroll down to Rachel Southard. We will have a read more and you will be able to get directly in touch with her, especially if you want to get into some franchise business. She will lead you. She's absolutely trustworthy. She will be amazing. And as always, if it turns out that you're listening to this episode and you or somebody you know or care about needs to buy and sell real estate anywhere on the planet, go to the landing page, click Find a Trusted Professional, and we'll make sure you don't get a moron. Thank you for coming, Rachel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Great.